recorded conversation, and I forgot to hit record as well. So here we go.
Here we go. Perfect. So just to recap for people tuning in, a Mint Bean Star, how the session is, I'm going to have to repeat myself just a bit. So how the session is organized is I'm going to be talking about what is a Mint Bean Star and why it's important that you win it and how it can help you in your career. And what's the way you get the Mint Bean Star, the hurdles you're going to face, and the resources that we've made available to you so that you can get over those hurdles in this coming week. A Mint Bean Star is our version of a blue ribbon. It is a seal of quality that you get, saying that I am Monarch and Navi are vouching for me as a developer. I am in the top 5% of developers at Mint Bean, and it becomes a feather in your cap, something for you to go out there and put on your resume and share with employers for sure. But a lot of employers come to us and work with Mint Bean directly. We have dozens of employers coming in and talking to us each and every month. And when they ask us, hey, we're looking for a developer and now also a designer, what we do is we go through our roster of projects and we find the projects that have Mint Bean Stars and we present those to the employers first and say, hey, from all of our projects for this month, Crystal did really great, she got a star. David did really great, he got a star. Jennifer did really great, she got a star. And here's a list. Why don't you talk to them first? So a Mint Bean Star is also a way for you to get noticed within Mint Bean and get noticed by employers. Not as cool as the trophy, but arguably more valuable than a trophy. The way you get a Mint Bean Star is you have to follow the Hiring Hackathon guide. And there's a rubric in there that I'm going to share my screen and share with you guys. Here we go. So this is at info.mintbean.io/hiringhackathon-guide, the dashes in between. This is the participants guide to the Hiring Hackathon. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. You can scroll down and go right down to the Mint Bean Star scoring rubric. This is the important stuff. You can read this on your own time, but if you go down to the Mint Bean Star scoring criteria, it'll share, it'll tell you exactly how to win. In order to get a Mint Bean Star, you need to have more than 8 points on a 12-point scale. And you can't earn more than 12 points, but if you earn anywhere between 8 and 12, you get a Mint Bean Star. It's that simple, it's self-explanatory, and that helps you craft your own development strategy to hit that goal. We're not looking, this is not a subjective measure, or at least it's not as subjective as just us going through a list and saying, yeah, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. This is actually something that you can aim for and make a plan for. So we have the following criteria: user experience and interface, developer experience, and developer experience is for backend only projects like API project. This one is not a backend only project. So you have UX UI, functionality, reliability, landing page, README, storytelling, and personal brand. And all of them are scored on the project, except for storytelling and personal branding. That's personal, that's yours. Everything else is a group effort. UX UI is one of those things that your designer can help you with. Functionality is actually also something that your designer can help you with if you have a designer on your group. Landing page is something that's actually really good for newer developers or people who are not quite confident on JavaScript. README documentation is also pretty good for people who are not too comfortable with JavaScript and are maybe a bit earlier on the learning curve. And storytelling and personal branding, that's something that you do on your own time. And that's something that I'll go over all of these, but I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture for you about how you can possibly aim for all of these all of these criteria. Let's go over all of them just one by one. So UX UI, you're not going to get, I should zoom in. UX UI, you're not going to get any credit if the UX is obscure or the UI, as opposed to the UX, or the UI is not aesthetically pleasing. What's the difference between UX and UI? UX is the flow of the application. UI is the look of the application. So color choices is usually UI, while placement, like button placement choices, is usually UX. So if the UX is obscure or the UI is not pleasing, or that's an or, then you don't get any credit over here. You get 1 point if the UX is clear and easy to use, but a non-trivial amount of help text is required to understand it. So that if the UX is not obvious and you need a lot of help to understand the UX, then you're only going to get 1 point. To get 1 point, you need to use appropriate design patterns. So nothing too crazy, just plain Jane is fine. And advanced is just you're using innovative patterns, you're using interesting or trendy UI patterns. That's how you get 2 points over here. Those who are blessed with a designer this time around are going to have a relatively easy time on this. And I'll talk to you about how to use your designer maybe towards the end in that last section. Developer experience doesn't matter over here. Functionality. So this is how closely have you stuck to the challenge document, essentially. And in order to get 2 points, you need to have creative features that you've added to the application that go above and beyond the challenge document. Reliability. This is basically how many bugs you have. To get 2 points, if you have no bugs, you get 2 points, is how it works. So queuing your app is really useful. As you can tell, if you want 2 points, you need to have a rock solid application with beautiful UX UI. I would suggest sticking to keeping the app simple, but focusing on all of these within the context of that simplicity. So keep the app dead simple. Don't do a lot of extra work on the functionality. Instead, focus on reliability, focus on UX UI, and you'll have a better go of it. Landing page. So landing pages, as explained before, this is your explainer page. So when you land on your app, the home page is your explainer page. The explainer page, as long as it's sophisticated, beautifully designed, and tells a story, maybe has some interactive elements and has creative thinking, you'll get 2 points. If you just want 1 point, that's fine. Then all you need to do is just have a basic explainer page, have it explain the technologies used to build it, and introduce the user to the team, then you'll get 1 point. There's area for trade-offs. You don't have to aim for 2 points on everything. In fact, if you're weak in a certain area, let's say you don't have a designer, then I would say don't even worry about UX UI. Maybe compromise with a 1 or maybe even a 0 on your UX UI if you don't have a designer, and focus more on functionality. And that might be a good way for you to get a star. So there are many ways to get a star, is what I'm trying to say. Focus on your strengths and abandon things that are in your weak areas is probably the best way to get a star here. Landing page, I think I just covered that. Yep, README. So README, if your README has, this is your GitHub README, the README markdown file on your project. This is the easiest way to get 2 points. It's also the easiest way to lose 2 points if you haven't done anything beyond the default Create React App README or the default Next.js README. You're going to lose all the points over here. It's really simple to get 2 points. All you have to do is follow the instructions, add a couple of screenshots, and list all the developers with their contact and social media information. And when I say contact information, I mean whatever you're comfortable with sharing. Just social media is fine. But yeah, like just your LinkedIn profile for each of the developers. If you do just that, this is the easiest 2 points for you to share. Please do not skip out on this. This is just like, this is the easiest 2 points you learn. Storytelling and personal branding is individual. So if you have 3 people in the project, then there are 3 different people that we're going to be grading on for this section. You can read the instructions over here, but basically, this is you telling your story of the hackathon and displaying your communication skills to the employer. showing that you're relatively eloquent, you can get along with other people, tell a story, and make your point. And this is something that a lot of employers look for. Um, if you have good written skills, focus on text-based mediums like LinkedIn or Twitter. Maybe have a blog post if you're really good at writing. If you're not that great at writing, a video walkthrough is fine. An audio presentation is also fine. In fact, a video or audio presentation that you just upload to YouTube will win you 2 points. So there's something for everyone over here. If you're not too sure about what you should do, ask me and I can help you out. A bunch more helpful tips over here. That brings us to basically how do most people screw up? And the best way to screw up, the most common way, not best, there's no best way to screw up, but the most common way to screw up is by losing motivation and getting distracted and not finishing the hackathon is probably the most common way that people end up basically losing out. They self-select out. I find that managing your motivation comes down to preventing issues before they come up and planning your time and pushing away all distractions. It's okay not to submit, right? Like it's a learning hackathon. I tell this story often about a mentee of mine who came to the hackathon. I met him at the hackathon. He didn't submit a single project. He didn't submit a project the first time around. He messaged me and he said, "Oh, Monarch, this first hackathon, it's my first hackathon. I don't know what happened, but I can't deploy this." I said, "What happened? Why can't you deploy it?" And he said that the application was just so full of bugs that he was embarrassed to deploy it. So I said, "Okay, that's fine. What I want you to do is come back next week." We used to do weekly hackathons back then. So come back next week, deploy a blank page. Can you do that? He said, "Yeah." So he deployed a blank page, came back. I said, "Did you learn anything?" He said, yeah, I learned a lot. I learned how to deploy. I learned how to make a simple application and just deploy it, even if it's a blank page. And this went on a few times. So each time he would come back to the hackathon, I would tell him to do a little bit more. Okay, so you submitted a blank page. Great. Can you submit a simple text-based application, maybe some CSS? He did that, came back. Can you submit a JavaScript-based application? He did that, came back. The fifth hackathon, he won. And in a month or two after that, he found his first job that paid about $60,000 a year, which is pretty good for a junior developer for the first time around. And what that goes to show you is you just have to manage your motivation. He was lucky because he had me personally helping him out. But you have people in your support system, whether that's your teammates or your bootcamp, manage your motivation, stick to it, stay in there. And when you hit a bug, come to office hours and talk to me. This is probably the biggest takeaway. The second biggest takeaway is deploy early. This section is super important. Can I have a show of hands? Who's deployed already? I'd love to know. Even if it's like a blank application. Jennifer's deployed. Good. So you deployed early. That's great. You've gotten over what screws up about 1/3 of the projects. That's great. For the rest of y'all, I would suggest deploy your code early. Like if you're using Vercel or Netlify, you have CI/CD. Once you deploy it, it's a done deal. Once you deploy it to Vercel or even GitHub Pages, all you have to do is push to master or main, and it just takes care of deployment for you. If you neglect to do that, I promise you that the issues you will have next week are going to be tremendous because they will compound. Issues will build upon issues without you realizing it. And then pretty soon you'll realize that you can't deploy your app and you'll have to drop out on the last day. Do not leave deployment until next week. I would suggest get it done this week. Hopefully by today, if not today, then tomorrow. That's the second biggest takeaway that I'll give you all. Working with a designer makes it interesting. Who's working with a designer over here? Anyone? Anyone is a designer over here? No, no one's working with a designer and nobody has a designer? Wait, nobody is a designer? Oh, wow. Okay. I guess I can skip this. But for people who maybe are shy or people who are watching YouTube for posterity, if you're working with a designer, keep a tight loop with the designer, talk to them. If you're a developer, talk to your designer a lot and use your designer as QA. That's probably the biggest advantage that you'll have as a designer. They'll be able to test your app, check it out, see how you're doing. And then while they're testing the app, they'll be able to come up with better and better UX patterns and sharpen your app with you. I would not recommend building a whole Figma file from the get-go. I think that might be difficult, although this is the first designer inclusive hackathon that we're doing. So I'm not like 100% sure, but my gut says, based on this experience, is if your designer tries to put together a Figma file before you start coding, that's probably bad. What you want to do is have your designer constantly review your project, suggest changes, and sharpen your project as you go collaboratively. If you're a designer and you've been trained by your bootcamp to build a Figma file, do user research, you can throw all of that out the window for this hackathon. I would suggest using Figma not as like high quality, high fidelity prototypes, but use Figma or Adobe or whatever you're using, use it as a sketch pad, like offer sketches of what's in your mind and let the developers bring your idea to life iteratively, organically. Don't force them on a certain direction. Instead, make a sketch, give the sketch to them, let them build something that's close to your sketch and then iterate over time. The reason I'm saying this is that as a new designer, you probably don't know what's possible and what's not possible as in devland. So it's better to just let the developers come up with their own ideas for implementation. We have a few minutes left. I think that was pretty good. I'm going to skip the resources bit, but in a nutshell, the resources, actually, I shouldn't skip it. We have office hours each and every weekday where I'm going to make myself available and I'll be available for questions and for debugging. So I'm the code mentor for the hackathon. Debugging happens inside the Discord. So if you're coming to the Discord, if you're not in the Discord, you should be in the Discord. But if you come to the Discord and ask questions, people are super helpful around here. It's a pay it forward community. So a lot of people are paying it forward and they want the opportunity to pay forward what somebody else did for them. Take advantage of that and get help from them. And if you find that somebody helped you, help somebody else in return who's not a part of your group, but is part of Mintbean. Help somebody else in return. And that kind of virtuous cycle builds upon itself. And it makes it a really good resource for everyone, even after the hackathon. I think the biggest resource that you'll find over here is a community that you can be part of long-term, not just right now, and where everybody's helpful, where you have senior talent and you have recruiters and hiring managers coming in. Becomes a really good place to network, ask questions, whether they're technical or career-oriented. And I think we started 5 minutes late, so we're going to go to 4:35 Eastern. So we have about 7 or 8 minutes more. Who has questions? I know somebody had their hands raised. I think it was Oluwaseun, I think. Yeah, if you have questions, just yell them out. Bridget, why don't you unmute and what's your question?
Oh, hi. It's just really quick. I was wondering which deployment site you would recommend for a beginner. Personally, I only have experience with Heroku and GitHub Pages. It was, I mean, I haven't really done anything aside from like link up my domain name. So yeah.
What are you building in?
I'm building in VS Code.
I mean, Stack. Sorry, I should have
Oh,
clarified.
Stack. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm actually a really like I'm a super beginner. And I don't know if you and Navi caught on like earlier, I was kind of like frantically posting. I'm like, oh no, this is a junior event and I'm like entry level. So anyway, I don't even know React or anything, but I'm going to be developing in JavaScript, HTML and CSS. And if I'm going to just do, you know, like the whole MVP, like try to get everything out first and then maybe investigate into React and stuff, but I've never done React. So
don't do React for this hackathon. If you're used to vanilla or you're used to jQuery, stick to that. And use a deployment target that you're comfortable with. So if it's GitHub Pages and you know how it works, use GitHub Pages. If you want to if you had like one thing that you were going to experiment with, it would not be deployment. Like it will screw you up right now. It's better to experiment with React rather than deployment, because once you solve deployment, you're good. You know, like it's out of the way, you don't go back. So you said GitHub Pages, right? And Heroku is what you're used to.
Yes, yeah. And I've only done, and I do want to be honest, I've only done like 2 deployments for each. So I don't even know if I should be partaking in this hackathon. It really helped me feel better when you mentioned the guy earlier, because I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one. So
you're fine. We get self-taught developers all the time who've never gone to bootcamp and they've never done React. Mintbean acts for a lot of people as like a dojo. You know, like you come in, you build stuff, and then you go away. You have like a friendly group of people, a community. So you're fine. Like, don't worry about it. You're good.
Okay.
And the fact that you've deployed means you're also not the least experienced over here. I promise you.
Okay.
Yep. Crystal, I think you had a question.
I was trying to reassure her I did a year-long boot camp and we only ever deployed twice in the whole year. So she's actually right on par with a lot of people with that.
Oh, yes, that definitely helps me feel a bit better.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Heroku was kind of easier in a way because it had like the terminal, what do you call that? Like the integrated terminal where you can kind of control it that way. But I don't know. GitHub Pages has been pretty easy too. So yeah.
I would just recommend GitHub Pages just because I tried doing a static site on Heroku and it was a lot of work. You almost have to have a backend on Heroku.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. One other option for you might be Netlify or Vercel, but only if you find a starter template for them, which is vanilla JavaScript friendly. Like there are a lot of React-y things for Vercel and Netlify, and Vercel and Netlify are actually easier than Heroku and GitHub Pages in the grand scheme of things, but it's one more thing to learn, you know, and a hackathon might not be a place to learn something that heavy and that basically that insignificant for your journey. So yeah, like focus on React. And I think the previous person who said GitHub Pages is spot on. Heroku is a lot of work, but totally up to you.
Monarch, there's a question from Abel. Just to clarify, can you get 8 points without any backend?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. It's we don't discriminate between front end and full stack projects. A front end project is equally as valuable as a back end project over here. Solo projects are equally as valuable as team projects because actually it's not that you have more people working on the project, it's that you have more people communicating between each other and causing issues. So it's like sometimes a solo project and a front end only project have advantages that the other two don't. And sometimes a full stack project might just be something that you're used to. So we don't discriminate. Pick something that you're good at and pick something that you're comfortable with, or your team is comfortable with. And I'd go with that. For this hackathon, don't pick anything that's too crazy unless you've got your base solid and you're adding on more features. At that point, you can think about going crazy, but get the basics done first. You only have a week.
Perfect.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop the live stream because we're on Mark, and then we'll just